All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the House Committee on Agriculture, Chesapeake and Natural Resources, Chesapeake Subcommittee. Clerk, if you can open the roll for attendance. All right, clerk, close the roll. We have a quorum. Okay, we got a number of bills up before us today. I think first on our list is Delegate Feggins. Delegate Feggins, House Bill 673. The podium is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I believe I have 2 amendments in front.
Okay. I guess if we got amendments, if our council can report the amendments.
Mr. Chairman, on line 21, introduced after article, we're striking the remainder of line 21 and through 10.1-603.25, and we're inserting additional weight shall be given to those projects that are located in low-income geographic areas, as that term is defined in 10.1-603.24, and to projects that incorporate nature-based solutions.
All right. Does everybody understand what the amendments are saying? Okay. Can we get a motion on the amendments?
Move the amendments.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. All right. The bill as amended is properly before us. Delegate Feggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to say thank you for allowing me and the partner to work with the language from last week to get it more amenable to the position it's currently in. House Bill 673 aims to align the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund with the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. The goal of the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund is to support flood mitigation projects that reduce community flood risk while also restoring or enhancing the natural flood mitigation capacity of the functioning floodplains. The passage of this bill would enable the Resilient Revolving Loan Fund to add additional weight to projects in low-income geographic areas and projects that utilize natural-based solutions. The amendment also addresses the concerns from last week. In terms of funding, this is already funded by the $10 million allocated in FY23 budget, and there's no additional fiscal impact. And I hope the subcommittee will support this bill and send forward to the full committee.
Very good. Thank you, Delegate Feggins. Does any member of the committee have questions of the patron? Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So walk me through the amendment one more time.
Sure. So what we did was we took out within line 21, Mr. Chairman, within the amendment, we took out line 21 and we struck through dot 25 and added in dot 24 within the code to make sure that it aligned correctly within there. And then we inserted to adding additional weight. Previously, the language had language that was not amenable, so we made sure to have the additional weight will be given to projects that are located in low income and not making sure.
Delegate Wilt.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I look at my overall concern, I understand where you're going, but when the fund was set up and the direction it has gone in, it seems to me that we should give preference to the areas that are most prone to flooding. If that's what this whole thing is about, you know, and maybe that coincides with low-income geographical area. If it does, it does. But I don't know. It just seems to me if that's what we're attempting to do, then that should be the focus.
Mr. Chair, I would answer to the delegate that while we are making sure that we're addressing that, historically we have seen that many of those areas that have been most flood prone has been low-income areas, and we're just making sure that this aligns up with current language that does exist in other funding of vehicles.
All right. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, do we have any members of the audience who wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, J. Ford Chesapeake Bay Foundation, thank you to the delegate and to you all for allowing some time to make these changes. To the delegate's question regarding the communities that should be targeted, the way this program works, the locality has to decide to set up the revolving loan fund. And so it would be those communities that are already impacted with recurrent flooding issues. And so this would be an additional weight for scoring within those communities. So it's, it will target those communities. Wanted to make sure that was clear. This is an important tool. Again, it brings parity to our approach here in Virginia with the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, and we hope you'll support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I know we've got quite a few folks up here, so if you could keep your remarks brief, that would be great.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, my name is Mary Carson Stiff. I'm the Executive Director of Wetlands Watch, and we are very supportive of this bill and thank the delegate for bringing it. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Emily Steinhilbert, Environmental Defense Fund. Thank you to the patron for bringing this bill, and we support it for all the reasons previously stated. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Morgan Butler. I'm with the Southern Environmental Law Center. We too support this bill. It takes two of the Commonwealth's resilience planning principles and weaves those directly into the statute, creating the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund, just as those two principles are woven into the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, my name is Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we too support this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any member in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, seeing none, it comes back to the committee. Committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to report as amended.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Do we have any final questions or comments? Seeing none, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with amendments 6-3. Thank you, Delegate Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
All right, looks like we've got Delegate Hodges. Hodgepalooza round 2.
Thank you, Mr. Only one, and I can't remember, Mr. Chairman, the last time I only had one bill before the subcommittee. Only had, what, 3 last week, I think? And that was a new record low, too, I think. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It was not a record.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1434 is proposing to convey certain tracts of land south of and including Brooks Creek.
Delegate Hodges, do I understand we have
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we have a substitute.
All right, can I get a motion on the substitute? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the substitute's before us. Delegate Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, House Bill 1434 is proposing to convey certain tracts of land south of and including Brooks Creek in the Sandy Point State Forest in King William County to the Mattaponi Indian tribe. Now, the purpose is to help the tribe sustain its culture and population by expanding their reservation. The specific areas mentioned include hunting grounds, agricultural areas, and housing for tribal members. Additionally, the legislation allows the Department of Forestry to grant and convey other tracts of land within Sandy Point State Forest north of Brooks Creek. But before doing so, the department may discuss with the tribe, local communities, and other relevant stakeholders to decide how these lands can be used for the benefit of the public. The terms and conditions for the transferring of land will be determined by the department with the approval of the Secretary of Administration in a legally acceptable form approved by the Attorney General. The department is also authorized to seek help from other state or federal agencies or conservation organizations to carry out the provisions of the legislation if needed. I do want to stress the legislation is only authorizing DOF to enter into these discussions. There's no mention about purchase, gifting. It's the beginning of a process to see if it could be made possible. Now, a little bit of history. In 1999, the Mattaponi Tribal Council, in collaboration with Nature Conservancy, identified a significant tract of land known as Sandy Point, approximately 2,400 acres, adjoining the present-day Mattaponi Indian Reservation. However, due to the lack of a mechanism to transfer land title to the tribe in Virginia during the early 2000s, the land was sold to the State Forestry Department in 2002 to protect it until a solution could be found. In 2017, legislation was introduced and passed providing a mechanism to place the land in state trust for Indian tribes, resolving the transfer of the title issue. Currently, the recorded deeds of the land require permission from the Nature Conservancy and the state for a sale or transfer, along with specific easements. Furthermore, the tribe is currently working with VIMS on a NOAA grant to acquire the Sandy Point tract, or at least the portion thereof. It's not the entire 2,400 acres, and that land could be divided up by DOF as they seem fit and enter into those discussions. So the tribe is actually aware that there could be a requirement to reimburse the Forestry Legacy Program to repay this, and that's the purpose of the grant. And they're optimistic. The discussions with the Forest Legacy Program look very good. I've worked with the stakeholders and in the county, citizens, and the tribe over the last 2 weeks and found what we believe is legislation that is pivotal for the Mattaponi tribe's cultural preservation and overall well-being. Furthermore, with any future conveyance by DOF, it is also an opportunity to benefit the entire community. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Hodges. Does any member of the subcommittee have any questions? Delegate Weber.
All right, so how much land are we talking about?
Less, probably around 300 acres.
Okay. And so
Delegate
essentially,
Weber.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. One
Yes.
more question. So essentially what the bill does is it sets up a framework by which a deal could be made for this 300 acres.
Certainly. If it works, it doesn't. It's the beginning of a process to enter into discussions. They can take, that it's probably a little bit more than 300 when I looked at the map. It could be a piece of that land, it could be all of that land, but it could be a portion of it as they enter into the discussions. If the money were to be repaid to the Forest Legacy Program, of course, the tribe is working on a mechanism to be able to repay that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further questions? Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the initial legislation, but then you said something about, sometime in the future acquiring other land to the north of where it is. Could you flesh that out a bit?
Sure, I can, and thank you for the question, Delegate Wilt and Mr. Chairman. Of course, there's very limited access to, even though I have 1,000 miles of shoreline, there's very limited public access. Currently, it's probably, gosh, Chief, how long is that walk down Sandy Point? Probably about 2 miles from where it's gated. There are also horse trails there. There's really no maintenance, dollars as far as on the DOF land now. So they can enter in discussions with the locality. They can enter discussions with the tribe and citizens and other stakeholders for public benefit and public use of the property as well. Doesn't say they have to, but they can enter into the discussions.
Delegate Wilt.
What, say, belongs to the Forestry Service, what's the land being used for now? And what, if this were to take place, what do you see as being the fiscal impact to the area, to the state?
Well, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, currently there are horse trails on there, and there's, you have to walk a great distance to get to the water. Currently, DOF has it and timbers the property and manages the forest land on that property. And, the impact and the beneficial use of that property could be in the long run, and working with DOF to have some type of MOU with the county, the tribe, or whoever. It's whatever we could create for the benefit of the locality in the long run is what we're looking at. But as far as fiscal impact, there's no fiscal impact to this legislation at this point because, those would be discussions that would be entered into, with the tribe and DOF and any other agency that DOF deems appropriate to enter into those discussions. And if it's decided that, hey, the tribe wants to repay that loan as part, or not the loan, but the grant from the Forest Legacy Program, which is a federal program, then the tribe, could be responsible for doing that, not the state.
All right.
And if I may finish that as well, the land, there is hunting on the property as well, but the portion of land that we're looking at for the tribe, that's actually an area that only has one, I believe, loop where a horse trail goes through out of 2,400 acres, but there's no hunting on that portion at this time.
All right, Delegate Krizik, and then Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Delegate. A couple quick questions, Mr. Chairman. So, why is it so confusing? You're kind of not confusing, but kind of difficult. Couldn't you just have a bill here that conveyed the land to the tribe?
It's very difficult. I may, we have some members of the tribe that have worked on this for quite a while. There are some issues with the deed. There's problems with the legacy program. So there are a lot of obstacles to navigate through, and I may have them walk you through that process. They've been working on this for a number of years. And there are also a number of easements on that property as well that were put in place, when the Nature Conservancy purchased that. So that's part of that deal. Those easements also have to be transferred as well in any future transfer.
All right, Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, I see there's a Sandy Point State Forest. What relationship does this tract have to the state forest that's listed?
It's the same. It's the same tract. Sandy Point State Forest in King William County? Yes. That's the tract of land.
So it would, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Delegate Ware.
So it would be a portion of what is now listed as a state forest that's used for a variety of purposes?
Yes, sir. South of including the Brooks Creek, which adjoins their current reservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. I did have one kind of a technical question for council, if you might. So it authorizes the department to convey the tracts, and then it starts that it gives them some broad authority with respect to how that's done. And then I guess in section 3, it again reiterates that it's going to be made on the terms from the department. It sounds to me like there's an extra check in there, which is the Secretary of Administration, if I'm reading that correctly. Is that typical for how we handle land conveyances, that it's the Secretary of Administration along with forms approved by the Attorney General that are kind of the final trigger?
Mr. Chairman, that's our understanding that this is the typical language that's used in these conveyances.
Okay, great, thank you. Further questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Those in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this bill? All right, thank you very much and welcome.
Yes, I'm Chief Mark Costello from the Mackinac Reservation. Some of these lands that we're looking for and asking for and is originally part of the reservation. Reservation was over 5,000 acres. And as time went on in encroachment, we are down to like 150 now. So we just ask that you guys look at this and pass it on through so we can help our people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Brandon Costello. I'm council member for the Mackinac Indian Reservation. I've been working on the land acquisition with the state and with other stakeholders. We've done a lot of work throughout the years. It's been about 25 years the tribe's been working to acquire additional land to sustain the tribe. This is an important piece or important legislation to get through for the tribe. We currently, as Chief mentioned, our current reservation is 150 acres or less, a lot of wetlands, marsh. We have about less than 75 tribal members that live on the reservation out of 256 total enrolled members, citizens of the tribe. We have nowhere. If you come and visit us, which we welcome you to do so, there's not a lot of room there. We're kind of packed in as it is. This will allow us to expand not just from housing perspective, but more or less it's a cultural expansion for hunting. Every year we do come and pay our tribute to the governor here with our game, which we do use our tribal lands to get that game to pay in lieu of our taxes and to uphold that treaty. This will allow us additional fishing, hunting, trapping grounds, and then also, of course, preservation. So there's a cultural aspect to this as well. So we appreciate your time and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody wishing to speak against the piece of legislation? All right, seeing none, we bring it back to the committee. Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the Department of Forestry is here and could offer any observations on this, perhaps the history that the delegate put forward or any other observations they might have on this parcel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee. Rob Farrell, State Forester. The administration has no position on the bill, but we have been in discussion with the tribe and understand the tribe's desire. From our perspective, the Department of Forestry is the steward of this land on behalf of the Commonwealth, and so we obviously defer to the Commonwealth's wishes on what to do with the land. To the fiscal impact, we earn about $28,000 a year on average from timber revenue for this state forest. A quarter of that goes to the county. So that, and perhaps through our agreement with the tribe, we could continue to manage the timber and do a different level of joint management perhaps. So that can certainly be addressed.
Delegate Ware.
One follow-up. The delegate gave kind of a history as to how this parcel has transpired to its current circumstance. Can you offer any light on that? Do you think that's generally what, as you understand it as well, or?
No, that did sound like an accurate representation. And the current director of the Nature Conservancy for Virginia is Bettina Ring, who is a former state forester. She has spoken with the previous director of the Nature Conservancy, and that was their intent at the time, was to try to transfer the land to the tribe. And so they still support making that happen at this time.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just one.
Delegate Ware.
Not a question. I was not intending to, indicate anything insufficient in what was presented. I just wondered if there was further information you could supply, and I appreciate your doing so. Thanks.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, and I guess, Mr. Farrell, if I could, looking at the structure of the substitute, want to make sure you feel comfortable that it is a good vehicle for negotiating those competing interests, but ultimately, heading the property to where it was originally intended.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I feel confident that we can work out an agreement. What my biggest concern was the locality. The local government had approached us at about the same time about wanting to increase public access on the state forest for the community members. So knowing that the locality is in part of this discussion, that addresses one of my main concerns.
Very good. Delegate Krizik.
I have a motion at the appropriate time.
Now would be the appropriate time.
And I want to thank the delegate for bringing this forward. I think it's very important, and I like the consultation piece that will take place with the tribe and all the other parties after this first part of the acquisition of the 300 or so acres. I would move to report the bill.
All right, there's been a motion to report the substitute and properly seconded. Any further discussion? One comment. Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm likewise glad to see this, and if it's possible to carry it forward in a way that sustains the tribe, I think that's a very valuable thing. I commend the delegate and the department for working with the tribe, because it's certainly understandable given the correlation of things here. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no additional comments, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with substitute on an 8-1 basis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Hodges. All right, Delegate Kent, you've been very patient sitting there. I think you have House Bill 1520.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, happy to present House Bill 1520. Thank you all for your consideration of this bill. In order to explain the bill, I realize there's lots of components in here, but to break it down, this bill directs the Virginia Institute of Marine Science to review the feasibility and the effect of studying cumulative impacts of surface water intakes on aquatic fauna. Chairman, I'd like to strike that word that I just said. The feasibility and effect of cumulative impact of surface water intakes on aquatic fauna and water quality in Virginia's rivers and the Chesapeake Bay. While we have some data on the impacts of surface water, we don't have any data on the cumulative impacts that affect all surface water on the aquatic fauna and the water quality of all of Virginia's rivers in the Chesapeake Bay. Currently, when intakes are being considered for permitting, DEQ and supporting agencies like VIMS conduct assessments on the impact of each individual intake and that effect of aquatic fauna mortality, but not in its entirety. So the VMRC and VIMS have both stated that they need to better understand the cumulative impacts of surface water and what that has on aquatic fauna, their mortality, and water quality. With fish populations having stressed and in decline or struggling to recover, we'd like to better understand the cumulative impact of that water. VIMS has said that they can absorb the cost and feasibility of this review while using existing resources. So thank you for your consideration.
So Delegate Kent, if I understand what you might have suggested as an amendment to get rid of the study, the feasibility of the study, is that correct? So,
hence my correction in my vocabulary when we started this.
Unfortunately, what that would do is get this referred back up to rules for studies, and I don't know that you want to do that.
Sir, right. Really, we're just trying to set the table for this because we don't know all of what VIMS may require in order to test this. Initially, the testing was going to take place in just certain parts of the river or just certain parts of the bay. So we really wanted to be able to take a broad stroke at all rivers and all the bay in order to really see what needed to be done in order to measure the cumulative intake. So this is really just to lay the groundwork. I think the concern is this is happening rapidly. More and more folks, and I say folks, but more and more local governments and businesses are requesting intake. And so we really wanted to just put a little bit of speed in this in order to make sure that we could react quickly.
So it'll ultimately be the will of the subcommittee how we move forward, but I just wanted to maybe make a suggestion for how we deal with the issue, because it's an important one, and so I don't want to kind of lose the focus on what you're trying to do. If we take out the feasibility of a study, it goes to rules, because then it becomes a real study, and it's really too late to deal with that. The other part, we really don't do feasibility of studying. However, it sounds to me like you have a willing partner in VIMS and VMRC to come up with how much would it cost to do an actual real study. And so in my mind, the most expeditious way of doing this would be to carry this bill over and then ask the chair of the committee to send a letter to VIMS and VMRC to put together what the scope and cost would be. And that way, when you come back next year, you'll be ready to go ahead and introduce an actual study with a budget amendment attached to that. So that would be my recommendation, but we'll kind of see what folks do. Any member wishing to speak on behalf of the bill or to the patron? Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So another concern that I have as I read the legislation, I mean, it's multiple times mentioned Chesapeake Bay, but on line 11, the surface water intakes on aquatic fauna and water quality in Virginia's rivers and the Chesapeake Bay. I mean, to me, that would mean all Virginia rivers. Is that your intent?
Yes, sir. So it would include the Rappahannock, James, York, multiple rivers, because intake is being taken from all of them. So that's kind of where the scope has changed. And that was with the recommendation of the experts, that they really wanted to be able to kind of look at all of that, how intake affects water and aquafauna in that. So it's really drastically changed the scope of it.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I get, you named off the rivers in the Chesapeake watershed, but there's a lot of other rivers in Virginia that aren't in the watershed. And I'm, not a lawyer, but how do you separate those out with the way the language looks to me? That's a concern of mine. So if you're going to take it by for a year, I'm just asking, that might be something that you look at to clean that up a little bit, to say the rivers in the Chesapeake Bay watershed.
Yes, sir.
If you're so inclined.
Yes, sir. No, thank you for, Mr. Chair, thank you for Delegate Wolt's suggestion. I guess specifically, we didn't want to leave out certain rivers that were involved in intake. Obviously, some rivers aren't affected by this, or creeks aren't affected by this because they're not trying to have water sources drawn from them. So maybe we would just say of those that are affected. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? And then anybody who wishes to speak against, if you can also line up. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of Subcommittee, Brent Hunsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock, we do support this bill. We are concerned that east of 95 in the Eastern Virginia groundwater area, DEQ and other agencies are working to get localities and other business off of groundwater wells because the aquifers are going down, and they are moving over to surface water intakes. And it also happens that this modeling technology did not exist a few years ago, so we are finally able to do this type of modeling now. And I will add that I believe VIMS is the one that has indicated that they have the ability to do the entire Chesapeake Bay. And so that is kind of where that scope came from. Originally, it was tidal freshwater areas of the rivers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Moore, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, we want to thank Delegate Kent for bringing this bill. This has been an issue that has arisen over the last couple of years as we've started to put more intakes, especially in our Chesapeake Bay draining rivers, and we hope to add some clarity to this. So thank you all for your ability to look at this issue.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nathan Thompson, James River Association. Given VIM's report to the General Assembly regarding American shad in the James River and their identification of water intakes as a serious issue, we're also supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we also recognize this as an important problem and appreciate the opportunity to learn more about it and deal with it in the future. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right. Anybody wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, we are back to committee. Delegate Herring.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Delegate Herring.
I move to carry over HB 1520 to the 2025 session with a letter from the chair to VIMS on the feasibility and the funding necessary for the study.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded to carry over. Seeing no additional comments, it's a voice vote. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, carried over. Thank you very much, Delegate Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee. Thank you.
All right. Who do we got? Delegate Fowler. All right. You now owe Delegate Batten. All right, I believe you've got House Bill 1406.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. This bill comes to us from the Department of Wildlife Resources. I had a nice conversation with with Ryan Brown. He expressed, he said, you know what, we need to get more people off the couch, including these young people, and he thought that adding another free fishing days to the calendar would be a great way to do that, and I agree. So as you know, right now the code calls for 3 free fishing days, so it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so if we'll look down, and I really had to work hard on drafting here, but on line 56, I scratch through 3 and add the number 6, that free fishing days, and that's essentially what the bill does.
About as simple as you can possibly get, Delegate Fowler.
That's the easiest bill I've ever had to do, Mr. Chairman.
We'll see how easy it is.
Well, we'll see. It's the easiest one I ever had to draft, but it's
very good.
Yeah.
All right, so no amendments, no substitutes. We're going with what you got, correct?
No substitute. Now, I think there may be was there a substitute? Yes, we have something. I think it came from, did it come from VMRC or who did it come from? Yes. And it doesn't change the spirit of the
Council,
legislation,
Council,
Chairman Bulliver.
Can you report either the substitute or the amendment?
It adds more fun.
Okay.
Okay.
Council.
And with no cost.
Mr. Chairman, it just adds like the same substance to 29.1-301. I think this also applies to inland waters.
Gotcha. So we want to make sure that we're doing both the inland waters and also the stuff in the Chesapeake Bay.
That would be correct.
All right. And is that a substitute?
Yes.
Okay. Do we got a motion on the substitute?
Move to adopt the substitute.
All right. It's properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Substitute is properly before us. All right. Members of the committee, Delegate Krizik.
Delegate, how many people currently utilize these free fishing days?
Well, I tell you, Ryan Brown and I would discuss that, but I can't recall the number. But it is a sizable number that take advantage of it. It's in the thousands that participate. And again, this is something that's available at all the state parks all over the Commonwealth. So, it does have a good turnout. And again, I think it is obviously very important to get. And of course, we're talking mostly about young people, but obviously this is also for adults to get out there with their families. But we really, I believe, I don't know if anybody else believes, but we need to get kids outdoors, catching fish and having a good time. And again, this is what the intent of the bill is, and I think it's a positive.
All right, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious. Now I see Director Brown. Perhaps he could speak to the physical impact. The free.
Mr. Chair, is this my first lifeline right here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my question is this whole free thing. So you're doubling the fishing days, and I think Delegate Krizik's question's a good one. It goes, what's our baseline with 3, and doubling it, what do we go to, and what's that potential impact?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me see if I can help. Ryan Brown, Director of Wildlife Resources, and actually it was Delegate Fowler who called me with the idea rather than the other way around, but maybe I want to take credit for it. Free fishing days are fun events. It says 3 days in code. Now what that translates to is a weekend. We do a long weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday generally. Across the Commonwealth of Virginia, where it's free to come out and try fishing for the first time. The concept behind free fishing days, at least as we've carried it out, is to get new people engaged in the sport. I've always appreciated this committee's eye on our revenues, which we use to fund our efforts. In this case, it's a promotion rather than a loss of revenue, and that if you're an avid fisherman, you're not going to bypass buying your license for the year just because we give you one weekend a year where you can try it. Our agency, in cooperation with Marine Resources Commission, holds a number of educational events, opportunities for the public to come out and go fishing if they haven't tried it before. We get a lot of good public attention on that, good for the sport of fishing. Hopefully, while it's not something you can really measure or discern the overall impacts of, I would be very comfortable representing to you that the fiscal impacts are positive as a result of these. Having 2 sets of free fishing days, which is what the change from 3 to 6 would effectively accomplish. I believe what you would see is an additional free fishing weekend in the fall, probably around the Labor Day weekend. And then that also coincides with a little better conditions in the saltwater fishery. Since the 2 code sections in front of you, one applies to freshwater and the department's jurisdiction. The one that I believe is added by the delegates amendment adds in the saltwater component, and saltwater fishing tends to be a little better in the fall. Ours is a little better in the spring, and we get to call it, so we picked spring, but certainly fall would provide, additional opportunities. And the only other note that I'd make about the amendment is to avoid confusion. The last thing we want to do is write a ticket on free fishing day. I do think it works well to keep the freshwater and saltwater components together. So if you're going to do it, it's free fishing days Commonwealth-wide, no matter which water body you decide to fish in.
All right. I don't see anybody else wanting to ask any questions. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, hearing none, we bring it back to the committee. We operate by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to report.
Second. All right, it's been properly moved and supported that we report the substitute. Any further comment? All right, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with substitute on an 8-to-1 vote. All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, and let me know when you want to go fishing.
All right.
Does that mean we get the double secret spot? No. All right.
All right, Delegate Batten. I believe you have House Bill 1449.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would have been better if it was House Bill 1693. That would have aligned up better.
I have before you a very simple bill this afternoon. This is simply a code cleanup that reflects the new Virginia Coastal Resilience Collaborative at William & Mary. This was previously the Virginia Coastal Policy Center that was housed at the William & Mary Law School until last year. The collaborative is an initiative that expands the existing William & Mary and VIMS programs addressing water resources and ecosystems, as well as coastal and climate resilience. So this is a language change that is also reflected in the introduced budget, and I am happy to answer any questions that the committee members may have.
All right. Anybody have any comments or questions from the committee? And hearing none, anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill? And while he's coming up, I couldn't help myself. I do think it's funny that we go ahead and say it's the Virginia Coastal Resilience Collaborative at the College of William & Mary in Virginia, and it reminds me very much, if you are a dodgeball movie fan, the American Dodgeball Association of America. So, yes, sir.
You know where it is located. Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you to Delegate Batten for sponsoring this bill. My name is Thomas Rupert. I am the director of the Virginia Coastal Resilience Collaborative and assistant provost for coastal resilience at William & Mary, and we support this bill. And I look forward to working with the Commonwealth and maximizing the use of William & Mary's resources for resilience in the Commonwealth.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody wishing to speak against the bill? All right, seeing none, we come back to the committee. And we operate by motion.
Move to report.
Second. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to report. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. Hearing. That bill reports 9-0, I think I saw. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate. All right, I think, and if somebody could please ring Delegate Hernandez, because we're going to run out of bills. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. My apologies. All right. Well, first we will start with Delegate Laufer's House Bill 1403. Delegate Laufer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. HB 1403 amends requirements in the Dam Safety, Flood Prevention, and Protection Assistance Fund in order to provide more funding support for owners of regulated dams. The bill would reduce match requirements to 10% for engineering studies and inspection reports with a $5,000 minimum. Match requirements would be reduced to 30% for grants supporting structural improvements. Additionally, the Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Board is only allowed to offer up to 50% of the funding that was deposited into the grant fund the previous year for grants and loans to dam owners. This proposal would increase the funds available to dam owners by removing that restriction to allow all of the Dam Safety, Flood Prevention, and Protection Assistance Fund to be available. Owners repeatedly reference the expense of engineering studies and structural improvements as one of the primary factors in failing to comply with the Act and regulations. This legislation balances the benefits the owner receives from the dam, the need to ensure the owner bears financial responsibility for improvements to the dam, and the recognition of the substantial financial cost of structural improvements to a dam. And I think we have some folks here in the audience that can speak to this as well.
All right, very good. Before we do that, does anybody member have any questions or comments for the patron? All right, if not, do we have anybody who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? All right, welcome, Director Wells.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Matt Wells. I'm the Director of the Department of Conservation and Recreation. We regulate about 2,500 dams in Virginia. Very much appreciate the patron bringing the bill, which we strongly support. This will help us get more money out to dam owners to help get them in compliance with the act and ultimately make our dams safer. So very much appreciate it. Hope the committee will report it on. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate Weber.
Question for Mr. Wells. How much do you anticipate that this will increase use of the funds in order to bring more dams into compliance?
Our hope is significantly. This fund has been undersubscribed. Historically, we currently have a roughly $10.6 million round out. Previous rounds got about, I think, 50% subscription. So our hope, again, is that this will enhance that significantly.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Weber.
So what can these funds be used for?
So the current round can be used for a number of things. There is a category for dams that do not have a hazard classification. A hazard classification is a measurement of what happens were the dam to fail. So there is a category to allow dams without a classification to get the classification. There is a category to support dams with known hazard classification, to do engineering studies and do some of the other things that they need to get in compliance with the regulations. And then there's a third category for high hazard dams to do structural mitigation. There is a FEMA grant program available, and our hope is that we will be able to use those dollars to leverage the federal dollars. These projects can get kind of expensive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Director Wells.
Mr. Chairman, Jay Ford, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We want to thank the delegate for bringing this bill. These dams that are in a state of maintenance or need maintenance represent both a clean water and localized flooding risk. And so we support this bill. We think it's an important step to getting more people in the program, and we hope the committee will support it as well.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mary Carson Stiff, Wetlands Watch. We support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Law Center, and we support the bill and thank the delegate for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Emily Steinhuber, Environmental Defense Fund. Thank you, delegate, for bringing the bill, and for all the reasons previously stated, we support the bill.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, seeing none, we bring it back to the committee. Any further comments? And we got a motion over here?
Yes, sir. Move to report.
All right, it's been properly moved to report and seconded. Clerk, open the roll. Bill passes. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports on a 9-0 basis. Thank you, Delegate Laufer. Delegate Hernandez, is he here somewhere?
I'm still here.
Delegate Hernandez, you have your House Bill 1458. Sorry about that again.
All good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. First, I'll just note I have a substitute.
All right, so we got I think the substitute's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the substitute's before us. Delegate Hernandez.
HB 1458 is critical legislation that will help us build a climate-ready Commonwealth together. Virginians, as we know, are already seeing and feeling the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise, increased flood events, which harm our communities, our economy, and our way of life. This bill has been in the works for some time, and it seeks to strengthen and coordinate Virginia's resilience efforts across the board. And that's sorely needed for a couple of key reasons. First, Virginia's resilience-related programs are scattered right now across different agencies and secretariats, making it difficult to coordinate these programs and leverage them fully. Second, Virginia's current structure does not provide local governments with the support needed to address challenges at the local level. Right now, localities have to navigate sort of Byzantine patchwork of agencies when attempting to address resilience challenges in their own backyards. And third and finally, the Commonwealth's two primary flood resilience funds, and that is the Community Flood Preparedness Fund and the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund, currently have minimal codified transparency requirements. So this bill seeks to address those challenges. And from a bird's eye view, the bill adopts a hub and spoke approach to resilience, with the Chief Resilience Officer, the CRO position, serving as the hub by ensuring coordination and communication across the agencies, which are the spokes. Under this bill, the CRO position will be nested under the governor, and the Office of the Commonwealth Resilience will be created to support the broader resilience mission, which in this legislation specifically includes adopting an all-of-government approach to ensure agencies are coordinated and achieve the best possible outcomes on this issue, providing technical assistance to local governments, and critically maximizing federal, state, and private funds to address resilience priorities, including by acting as a non-federal sponsor in certain circumstances and entering directly into agreements with the federal government, including the Department of Defense. To help facilitate this work, the bill also creates an interagency resilience working group, which will be led by the CRO. And as I mentioned earlier about transparency, that's very important, and this bill enshrines in law the transparency and oversight commitments from the administration related to the two funds. So that's the bill, which represents the best recommendations from key stakeholders, legislators, and the administration. I want to, in particular, thank Director Wells for his work on this issue and his leadership. With that, happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Delegate Hernandez. And just from a procedural standpoint, I want to make sure that we properly address House Bill 948 from Delegate Lopez, which I believe is kind of subsumed into your bill. And just realizing that merges in there, wanted to get out there. The intent would be to incorporate 948 into House Bill 1458. And if I could get a motion to that effect.
I move to incorporate those two bills.
All right, it's properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, let's give the clerk a few seconds because I think I surprised him. 14, so it's 948. 1458 into 8. Yeah.
Did we vote already?
Is that a voice vote?
Yes.
All right. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right. That's properly incorporated. All right, Delegate Hernandez. So we have your bill before us. And I guess what I will say is that we've been tinkering with the structure of how we deal with resiliency and climate change for a number of General Assembly sessions. And so finally we did bring all the stakeholders to the table to see what the most effective way of doing this was. And I believe this is a consensus that came out of that stakeholder group. Any members have any questions of Delegate Hernandez? All right, seeing none, do we got members of the audience who wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Wells, and the Director of the Department of Conservation and Recreation. I want to thank the patron for bringing the bill, and Delegate Lopez as well for incorporating the transparency measures. We strongly support this bill. The delegate did a fantastic job of describing what's a great bill here. This was the outcome of a year-long stakeholder group that brought together 39 parties from nonprofits, from state agencies, from industry, from academia, and from localities, and adopted 23 recommendations without opposition, which I think is really remarkable. This bill encapsulates the legislative portions of those recommendations. I want to thank the members of the working group for a year-long effort. At the end of the day, this bill will allow us to better leverage existing resilience resources, to better capture additional resources, to better support our localities, and to ensure that DCR's flood funds continue to be administered with transparency. So we are pleased to support the bill, and again, thank the patron.
Delegate Ware, did you have a question for the director?
I do.
Yeah. Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just getting this for the first time, seeing it sounds to me like this officer will be a direct report to the governor, not to any agency head or department head. Can you give me a comparable of some other agency that would be similarly situated without a report? I'm talking about the administrative side as opposed to the other elements of it.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Ware, I would say there are several offices that are under the office of the governor now. The Chief Diversity, Opportunity, and Inclusion Officer is one of those. This would create a CRO position that is supported by a small staff. Our intent here was to move it out from under the Secretary of National Historic Resources to give it a broader purview because the resilience efforts don't just live under the Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources. Public safety has some of it, commerce has some of it as well. So our hope here is to provide a position that's got a broad enough line of sight that they can really help pull all of these people in together. Again, this isn't about creating some new layer of bureaucracy. It is really about leveraging all of the strengths that we have at our agencies now in a better fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Director Wells and Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank the committee.
Thank you, Director Wells.
Mr. Chairman, Jay Ford, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, had the pleasure of serving on this work group. I would like to thank Delegate Hernandez as well as the administration for this legislation. It really was a tremendous task. We are particularly grateful to the administration for working with us on language to make sure we were maximizing co-benefits with our natural resource objectives. This whole of government approach really is about making sure we're getting the highest ROI on limited tax dollars, and we think this bill puts us in the right direction. So we thank you all, and we hope that you will support the legislation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Delegate Hernandez for bringing this legislation. Emily Steinhilber, Environmental Defense Fund. I, too, had the pleasure of serving as one of the 39 stakeholders in this work group over the past year and very much appreciate the administration's support, particularly Director Wells and Secretary Voiles, in coming to this consensus with so many different parties at the table. This is an issue we've been trying to work through, how to best leverage our resources and the work across our agencies, and we appreciate the work that goes into this bill. And this will bring Virginia up to be in the best practices across the country on this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver, representing the Virginia Agribusiness Council. I also served on the work group. Just want to commend again Delegate Hernandez for bringing this and Director Wells and the administration for how well this process went. It's not very often that you get such a diverse group of stakeholders together and come out with so many unanimous recommendations. So I think we're in a really good place here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mary Carson Stiff, Wetlands Watch. Ditto everything that everybody has said. This is an amazing feat and a big deal for the Commonwealth to come this far, and want to thank the administration and the delegate very much for bringing this forward.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Law Center. We too support this bill for the reasons that have been previously mentioned. Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Seeing none, we move. Oh, we got somebody online. Let's see. Zach Scott, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'll keep this short and sweet, just based on what everybody else said. For the same reasons, the Potomac Conservancy also supports this bill and urges its passage. Thank you, Thank you, Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Scott. We appreciate that. Okay. We come back to the subcommittee. Are there any further comments, questions, or is there a motion?
Move to report.
All right, it's been
as substituted and referred to. Oops.
Do we have a letter?
I don't have a letter.
Oops, we don't have a letter yet. So proper motion would be to report. Do we have a substitute?
Yeah,
we did.
The incorporate.
Oh, the incorporate. I'm sorry. All right, so properly moved the substitute. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with substitute 9-0. And rounding off the meeting, we have Chairman Lopez. Chairman Lopez, the floor is yours. House Bill 949.
Which one does that letter?
Completely up to you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, do we have a substitute? All right, can I get a motion on the substitute? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The substitute is properly before us. Chairman Lopez, House Bill 949.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. I can speak to the substitute sort of takes on the the issue of this, of the storage of hazardous chemicals in Virginia in several different ways. First one, it gets the ball rolling on implementation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's final rule on Clean Water Act hazardous substance worst case discharge planning regulations. Two, it creates enhanced penalties for negligence and gives the Commonwealth an avenue to hold bad actors accountable, even when the EPA chooses not to or only give them a slap on the wrist. Three, it implements enhanced record-keeping mandates. Four, it provides clear access to records and property by qualified government personnel. And then five, it requires finalization of state guidance within 6 months of the federal rule finalization. While this isn't as far as we wanted to go for the last couple of years, I think this is a meaningful progress and a foundation that we can build on for the future. And I want to thank the manufacturers and several of the activists and advocates for working with us on this important step in the right direction. That's the substitute, sir, and I can speak to the bill now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So in 2014, 300,000 residents in 9 counties in Charleston, West Virginia's metro area were left without drinking water for more than a week. Why? Because what is known as the 2014 Elk River spill, chemical spill, approximately 7,500 gallons of a chemical called MCHM leaked from a damaged above-ground storage tank into the Elk River and into the local water supply. MCHM, when ingested, can damage the liver and kidneys and also can have an effect on red blood cell production. It was famous for us, especially because it shut down the state government and the West Virginia legislature for a week when it happened. In 2016, DEQ, DOH, and DEM, they did a report that was mandated by us. They concluded that there were significant gaps in Virginia's regulation of chemical storage tanks. And yet, after 10 years since the spill, we haven't done nearly enough to regulate large chemical above-ground storage tanks, and the specter of our own Elk River still looms. These tanks have the potential to create a great deal of damage and harm to local communities. Though thankfully none were as significant or have been as significant as Elk River's, DEQ's own database of spills has showed more than 4,800 chemical spills from tanks between 2000 and 2020, and about 230 per year. We can't afford to take the hits, and whether economic or public health related, from mistakes like these. I think that working with all the activists and the advocates, and especially with Brett Vassy and the folks from the manufacturers, we've taken a significant step in the right direction, finally, on this issue, and we're also getting ahead of some of the federal regs that are coming down rather soon. So I appreciate the work of DEQ, I appreciate the work of the manufacturers, and I also appreciate the work of environmentalists who've worked with us on this as well. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I hope you'll pass report the bill.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess if I understand it correctly, so we're not reinventing the wheel with respect to a federal program. We are making sure that the state has skin in the game with respect to tracking and reporting, and especially
Yes, we still have the same tracking, reporting, and then we also, we all know the famous reports that people have to do. Here's a copy of what we typically have to put out and that folks have to report on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Weber.
Yes, question for the patron.
Delegate Weber.
First, just trying to wrap my head, you said there were 220 chemical spills. What do those spills range from?
Oh, mostly very small.
Okay. And then, so in the bill, you've got basically negligence. What would be a good example of where negligence happens in a spill where that would fall under your piece of legislation?
So a good example would be Elk River in West Virginia, where it was willful. It was not willful, but it was negligence to the point where you had the corrosion in the tank, and it wasn't addressed. And it was placed right next to the Elk River, and it just flowed right in.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Weber.
All right. So a company or an individual that would fall under this piece of legislation is already monitored by DEQ or some regulatory process in regards to their above-ground tank, correct?
Yes.
Further question?
Delegate Weber.
And so then negligence would be established because of violations or just?
What's the standard? Maybe I can phone a friend on what the standard is.
Yeah, I
at DEQ.
apologize.
All right. I think we got a friend from DEQ to come help out.
What's the standard?
Oh,
You can answer.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, could I get the question repeated, please?
Delegate Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So under negligence in the delegate's bill, how does, like, Elk River's an example, but I mean, it's a pretty big example. Is there, what falls under negligence in regards to a chemical spill that would occur now that this bill would then regulate?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, and Brandon Bull from the Department of Environmental Quality. Mr. Chairman, I'd say to Delegate Weber that a good example of negligence would be if somebody's not, following their plan, the plan for, inspections that are already in place, or, maybe they're not in compliance with some of the training requirements that are required, and then something happens. I mean, negligence is always going to be a very fact-specific, case-specific finding, but I think those would be some of the things that would fall under negligence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Brett Vassey, CEO of the Virginia Manufacturers Association. This is the 7th General Assembly session we've addressed this bill. So it's a pretty monumental occasion when we have the federal government who's done something right, which is the pending rule, and DEQ has been instrumental, and I want to thank Director Rollband working with the industry, and I want to thank the chairman and the patron working with us to find a win-win for implementing something that's very novel. We can't recall too many times a federal rule has been codified. This is a very high bar as well, and we do want to avoid an Elk River. We believe that we are regulated better, but we want to put our money where our mouth is, and that's what this bill absolutely does. I also want to point out that most of the spills, in fact almost all, were human error, with the exception of perhaps tank failure. But this allows DEQ to develop guidance. It's in the enactment clause 3, if you read that carefully. And the guidance can include bringing down some of the federal rules on training requirements on our operators. And we are glad to participate and comply with that as well. So, Mr. Chairman, for all those reasons, the Virginia Manufacturers Association supports this bill.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver, representing the Virginia Agribusiness Council. I really want to thank Chairman Lopez for his work on this bill. We don't have any concerns with this as it's drafted. Really appreciate the entire process here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Nathan Thompson, James River Association. This has been a high priority issue for JRA for many years, so we'd like to thank the delegate for shepherding it through the process, to DEQ for their participation, and to the other stakeholders. We support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Hobie Bowen, president of Virginia Poultry Federation. We've been following this issue for many years and wanted to thank Brett Vassey and the manufacturers for their efforts to lead the business side of things to what seems to be a consensus, and Delegate Lopez for all of his efforts on this issue. We're supportive as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Patrick Fanning with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We also want to thank the chairman for continuing to elevate this issue over multiple sessions, and we agree that this is a good step in the right direction and will support transparency, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we also, for the reasons already stated, support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ross Grogg, on behalf of the Virginia Maritime Association, we also support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Robert Crockett, on behalf of Advance 6, we also support the bill and want to thank the chair.
Great. All right, I don't know that there's anybody left in the audience to speak against it, but if there is, now's your chance. All right, back to the committee. Any further comments or questions? Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my question for the patron would be, so I appreciate the work that you've done, but at the end of the day, it's to me, it's like a lot of things. If there's a bad actor, how does any of this prevent a spill? I mean, it seems to me that everything that we're doing is going to be retroactive. You get a spill, now we're going to jump on it and do something. How do we prevent the actual spill?
Well, I appreciate that. I think part of it's about the way the record keeping works with DEQ, being on top of when there are problems and being able to come and have proper oversight. And so if there are lapses in record keeping, if there are lapses in the inspection process, then DEQ knows to come and take proactive efforts to address something.
All right, thank you. All right, committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to report and refer to appropriations.
So it's
with substitute.
Report the substitute and refer to appropriations. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any further comments? Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports and refers with substitute to appropriations on a 9-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any more business before us today?
Completed our docket.
All right, we do not. Let me just say, so this completes our work for the first half of the session. Don't worry, we got a whole nother exciting half coming up after crossover. But appreciate all the hard work from the members, but also particularly for our clerk and our council and all of our staff who've kept us on track. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.